I'm Jeff Wilson. I'm the president and CEO of Precipitate Gold Corporation. Precipitate is a junior exploration company with multiple assets, primarily in the Dominican Republic, but also in Newfoundland, Canada.
Jeff, good to see you. I haven't seen you since July. Markets don't seem to have changed too much. I'm keen to understand what guys like you, because where are we? We're sub 10 million market cap here. I'm trying to keen to see how you kind of power through this cycle. What do you do? Last time we spoke, you just received some money in the bank. So what are you focused on? What's important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice position to be in this market, to have cash and to have assets that you like and that you're keen to explore. We've been in a position here over the last several months where we've been ramping up our work in Newfoundland. We've commenced a drill program there at our Mother Lode project. That commenced in here in October. That'll probably run for about 4 or so weeks, maybe a little bit more. In terms of, sort of macro, what are we doing to answer that question? With the capital we have, we own all of our assets 100%. So we're not sort of bogged down by, underlying option payments and work commitments. We can kind of be nimble about where we want to go. But the other part of the equation here with this cash has been, as you know, in this market, there's a lot of distressed companies out there. There's a lot of distressed assets out there that are, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the market that we're in. And so we are looking at a lot of opportunities, inbound opportunities, to try to do something accretive for the company. And we like our portfolio. We think we're well positioned. But, if you can be nimble, as I say, in a market like this, there might be an opportunity to acquire something transformational for the company. So we're looking. We're spending a lot of time evaluating assets that are out there. We're being approached just about every day. But we're in a fortunate position that we don't need to jump. We're not looking for that something to save the day. If it's not the right deal under the right terms, as I said, we're very happy with the suite of assets that we have in the company now.
Right, but let's have an honest conversation with each other, because I think what people looking in, whether they be shareholders now or people looking for discounted stock, of which there's quite a bit around, is they want to know, you've got this cash from Barrick, you're valued at cash, all right? So they're kind of valuing what you've got at the moment in terms of the assets at zero, it would seem. So the question they're going to be asking is, are these guys going to, do something with that cash? Is $1 going to equal 3? Is it going to equal 5? Or is it just going to equal 0? So talk to me about, I know you're not rushing into buying stuff, but at the same time, what are you going to do that's going to encourage people to, help people understand whether or not you're going to create value or just blow it?
Sure. And I think we've positioned ourselves pretty nicely here with sort of multiple layers or opportunities that are all at play at once. So first and foremost, we've done a deal with Barrick, not only to acquire the cash, but as part of that deal, they're still continuing to explore on an earn-in agreement on one of our assets called Pueblo Grande. So there, Barrick is obligated to spend $10 million US over 6 years to earn a 70% interest in that project. So Barrick continues to explore. They've got relatively tight timelines to spend those exploration dollars. It increases over time, but they'll spend $1.5 million between now and April if they want to maintain their right to that. So there will be news flow there. There is work, progressing there without it depleting our treasury. We've been sort of working with the Dominican government on a number of different fronts on our other assets in the other part of the country, where we're adjacent to a company called Gold Quest, who has a several million ounce deposit that they're trying to get permitted. We are ready to continue to sort of, re-engage work there if and when the political environment is apt for us to do that.
Well, remind people about that, because we talked about it, a long time ago when we first met. In terms of Gold Coast, they're being held up there with the Romero project, right? You're just next door, where you can't move till you see the government do something. You've just come back from country. Who are you talking to? Did anything move forward? You get any positive indications of what might happen?
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think where that's at as a quick summary is, our neighbors, Gold Quest Mining, has about a 2.5-3 million ounce gold equivalent deposit that they've pushed to a pre-feasibility stage and are trying to attain an exploitation permit so they can move that through development. That's been stalled not so much by, government not wanting it to advance, but, government wanting to stay popular. And you've got to sort of make sure that the locals and the people in country are on side with the concept of mining. So that process is playing out. In the meantime, we're immediately adjacent to that project with multiple targets. We've got over 10,000 hectares. We are fully permitted. We have our concession rights, our exploration rights, our drill permits for that project, but we've elected to sit tight until there's clarity of a path forward. And rather than spending money to find gold when the guys next door have already found it and can't extract it, we think it's better to maintain that asset and wait for a day where we can see a return on investment, where the market will reward us for any exploration success that we have there. So, my time in the Dominican Republic last week, I did meet with the Minister of Mines, the Vice Minister of Mines, the head of the mining department, everybody that's sort of an influencer or a stakeholder in the mining sector. And I can tell you that the government knows that mining is important for their economy. Barrick, with its Pueblo Viejo mine, is the single largest contributor to the Dominican Republic's economy. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes every year. So the government gets it when it comes to mining. But again, it's more to do with massaging sort of the messaging and how the locals feel about a new mine being permitted. And that takes a little bit more time. Gold Quest is actively pursuing that. We're working with them to help create a better environment. But those assets are still very prospective. And as I said, we have the permits necessary to do our work. We just think that it will be a better return on investment for our shareholders if we do it in an environment where the market believes we can move it forward.
Right. My point is from earlier, which is no one's giving you $1 of value on that. Should they? Okay, Barrick's in country paying hundreds of millions in taxes and helping the economy, employment, and all of those wonderful things. They've done a deal with you, spend $10 million over the next six years. And whether or not they kind of get to the end of the 6 years or not is a case of whatever they find. But do you think it's fair that you're kind of getting zero value for what's going on in the Dominican Republic, whether it be with Gold Quest, which is a waiting game, right, or whether it be with Pueblo Grande and Barrick and their Pueblo Viejo project? It's got to be worth something. It's not worth zero, is it?
Yeah, it definitely is worth something, and I think that Barrick would not be taking on an earn-in agreement with Precipitate if Barrick did not believe that the Dominican Republic was a country that they could hunker down and expand their operations, identify more resources within country. So that I think should give investors some comfort that one of the largest publicly traded mining companies on the planet believes this is a jurisdiction where you can get it done. We similarly believe this is a jurisdiction where you can get it done. The opportunity there lies in the fact that this country is grossly underexplored. We've been able to delineate some highly prospective targets, and we think that the terms under which we've acquired these assets, it warrants a little bit of patience to put ourselves in a position where we've set the stage for us to be able to spend money, generate results, and be rewarded for that, and continue to move the projects forward with governmental support. And we think that that time is coming. We like the current administration. We think that they believe in what we're doing, and it's really just a matter of sort of putting this in a position where all stakeholders believe in the upside of mining in country.
Right, but time's no one's friend in things like this. If there's some cost, I can understand why with Juan de Herrera, you're saying let's not spend too much time or money on that one because we'll just burn through that with no sense of when the end date is. I guess Barrick are now in charge of the rate at which they move forward, subject to the terms of your agreement. Are you spending any other money in country, anything meaningful money in country?
Yeah, I mean, the money that we're spending is mostly on sort of some community relations and making sure that there is an understanding that we want to be good corporate citizens. We want to be part of the solution in terms of economic benefit for local communities. So that's a fair bit of where we've been spending our time. And as everybody knows, ESG is a very important part of our business these days. So even during times when we're not necessarily doing work that generates news, we're certainly not sitting idle and sitting on our hands. We understand that if we do intend to come back and be part of the community, you can't just kind of dash in when the market is right. You sort of need to be a little bit more present on an ongoing basis. So that's sort of where we're spending a small amount of money on those initiatives, but waiting for the day where we can spend significant amount of capital in exploration and
But can I ask this? Do you feel you've got enough exposure, or in fact, all the exposure that you want in the Dominican Republic? When you said earlier on, oh, we're looking at, we're getting sent lots of opportunities, and we're looking at them and we're diligencing them. Are any of those in the Dominican Republic?
No, I think we do have the exposure that we like, and partly that's exploration potential exposure, but it's also political risk exposure. So I think for us, we've been in this country for 10 years. I think we feel as if we've cherry picked some really good opportunities at a time when there was very little competition, and we have not yet had an opportunity to test a lot of those targets that we delineated in the early days. So we still think there's really good upside with what we have, and so when we're looking at new assets now, we would look to diversify a little bit from a jurisdictional standpoint and look at something that might be in the Americas, whether it's Canada, the US, maybe Latin America. So these places where we've got a little bit more clarity and transparency in terms of, the bureaucracy of dealing in these jurisdictions.
Right. Okay. So let's kind of stick with the kind of M&A side of things. So Dominican Republic, let's park that up. Okay, understood. With the kind of M&A side of things, you've named a few jurisdictions which you've been looking at, slightly more happier in terms of the blended risk approach to operate in. Is that kind of M&A activity? It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. I get it, and it can be all sorts of structures there. Is the fact that you could be looking in another jurisdiction on top of the Newfoundland opportunities, I should say, does that make sense in terms? How do you make the decision of this is the best use of our time and our money versus getting after whatever's going on up in Newfoundland, and hopefully you can update us with the drill stuff at some point, or should we just get a little bit blinkers on and kind of get really, really focused here? Why is that risk opportunity cost, say, maybe acquisition in another jurisdiction is the most accretive in terms of value in this current economic environment?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons in my opinion, for us to look at diversifying even outside of Newfoundland. First of all, we would acquire something in Newfoundland if it made sense and it fit and it was unto itself, a perspective and we thought worthwhile. Having said that, our current mother lode project, we're advancing this to our first round of drilling, which is underway now. And, there's the possibility that that's quite binary. We go in, we drill our best targets here, and perhaps as is the case with exploration, it doesn't pan out and we've got to start looking for something else. So having the DR assets helps, but if we start looking for something to acquire, I don't know that Newfoundland has to necessarily be part of the future. So we'll let those results speak for themselves. And if we feel as if that asset warrants ongoing expenditures, great. We've got the capital to be able to do that. But in terms of looking at something that we think could be sort of transformational, whether it's a massive, sort of district scale, underexplored opportunity or ounces in the ground that has exploration potential and has been stalled, those sort of transformational assets, they don't necessarily need to be in Newfoundland for them to be highly accretive for our shareholders and investors.
Do you find that?
We look anywhere.
Okay, well, and that makes sense, right? I get it. Every company's got its own, strategy, business plan, etc., and the teams have got different levels of experience. But given, again, coming back to the economic environment which we find ourselves, you've got investors like myself, you've got family offices, you've got retail, just saying, well, who's going to survive this, right? Who's going to come out the other side? You got a whole bunch of cash. So you got optionality at the speed at which you spend that, how you spend that, where you spend that. All good, right? But there's got to be opportunities with cash-stranded companies to look at proper JVs, shared risk, shared capital, shared investment, shared planning, etc. Or indeed, there's going to be cash-strapped companies who are thinking, well, they're not going to sell the good stuff first unless they're really, really under a lot of pressure. So again, how do those conversations manifest itself? And, what's your ideal situation in terms of what a new jurisdictional asset could look like?
Yeah, again, I think one of the problems we're seeing right now is that there are so many opportunities that it is one of the challenges for our company and for my board of directors right now is to really sort of vector in on, what it is we want to focus on. I mean, there really is everything from, 1 + 1 = 5 in terms of an M&A and two juniors coming together, one with cash, one with an asset, or, a blend of both. Companies that have a really, sort of high level tier one flagship asset, multiple second tier assets within their portfolio that they have to sort of pick their horse. And so somebody else's second tier asset might be a wonderful asset for us as a junior exploration company. So it really, I have to say, unfortunately, I can't tell you it's going to be, this or that. It's a number of different opportunities that are presenting themselves to us or that we are sort of targeting. But I think, again, for us, we want something that ultimately we can attain a 100% interest in. So again, as a junior company, we're not project generators. I think you sort of want to swing for the fences. You want that significant upside. So for us, we're looking for a pathway to 100% ownership of any asset that we get involved in. And so, again, we have to sort of sift through a lot of sort of guys that still want to sort of hang on to these things and keep their strings attached. And we just push those to the side. And we want to have some sort of a pathway to 100% for our shareholders.
So I'm trying to work out what the parallels are out there between, us regular investors and you guys who are, taking a chance too, because it's if you pick the wrong vehicle, potentially terminal, right, for you, or certainly very costly at the very least. And likewise for us investors, if we kind of back the wrong horse, it's you potentially terminal for that capital, but or at least very expensive for us. So I guess you're sort of looking at the management teams, the other side, management team's ability to have picked decent assets and tell you the truth. And produce data which you can properly assess something. But what else are you kind of looking at? I wonder if there's anything we can learn from in terms of that process.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think is perhaps worth considering is that in many cases, companies that are in a challenging or somewhat compromised position right now is, unlike what we tend to think, is not really indicative of the quality or the competency of the management team. I mean, this market has been so unforgiving that I think even really good companies with really good assets have found themselves in a challenging position. I mean, you think about what you would consider to be doing the right thing for a junior CEO, and it's raise a little bit of money, don't over dilute, go out and test your best targets, get the assay results, announce them, get some credit for that in the market, see your share price go higher, and raise more money. And there's guys out there who've done every step of that, quite appropriately, and still find themselves in a position where they're trading at 30, 40, 50% valuation of where they were before they started. So I think that's one thing to think about, is that as investors, you have to look past sort of just the percentage that a stock might be down and say, okay, what do they have? Who are they? Do I believe in their ability to identify, good opportunities? Yes, I do. Do I then, believe in their ability to move the needle? So we're purely looking at the assets, independent of what the share price might be telling, that company or whatever, and saying, look, what do we like here? And if we like the asset, if it's coming from good people, they're not necessarily distressed because of any fault of their own. It really has been a market that's been, like I say, unforgiving. And so there are great opportunities out there. And again, in some of those cases, that's why we're looking at M&A, is in some cases, the asset might be great, but the ability to merge or combine teams and bring in a sort of a homogenized board of directors that has a diversified skill set, is also appealing to us too. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots to consider. Everything sort of has its hairballs, if you will, and you sort of have to decide, what are the challenges that you feel your team can overcome, and try to sort of find something that we can identify as something we can wrap our hands around long term.
Okay. Well, look, we're going through this kind of contrarian series, as it were, talking to companies we think have something about them, but we're not quite sure what yet. This is your chance on our platform to put in your words why you think you are a discounted stock, a genuinely discounted stock. I don't want to hear that, oh, we're undervalued. Preamble and then preaching session that we get from everyone. I want to hear, what are the actual things that we need to be looking at and say, truly, this thing is a discounted value. We need to get in now, because when we come out of this cycle, this thing's going to go on a run. I mean, what's your message?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's an opportunity to express that is I'm grateful for that. So first and foremost, I think about it as what do you want a company to have if you're going to invest in the stock? What's going to move the needle? And for me, in this market, no question, it's having cash, unallocated, hard dollar cash that we can spend as we see fit. That's number one. Number two, what do you want as an investor to move the needle for a junior exploration stock? Drill assay results, discovery potential. That's the one catalyst that can really drive a share price from 10 cents to God knows what. So we're currently drilling in Newfoundland. Drills are turning, assays are pending, and that will start to come out between now and hopefully year end, depending on the labs. We've got a major company spending its money on one of our key assets in the Dominican Republic. So, a project that is situated surrounding the largest gold mine in Latin America, top 5 gold mines on the planet. Barrick is spending its money to try to find meaningful ounces on our ground that it can then feed into its mine eventually. We've got a 3% NSR on some of that surrounding ground. And so if Barrick has some level of success there, upside there as well. And then we're sitting on 2 other assets in the Dominican Republic that, again, we own 100%. We're not facing some, looming underlying option payments that are going to, we're going to have to deplete our treasury for. That we have permits for, drill permits, exploration permits, and could go in and drill at the drop of a hat when we feel as if the political environment there is appropriate. So again, I feel as if we've got cash, we've got drilling underway, we've got assets that are at the ready in terms of re-engaging with drilling, and all of that with a team that I think has a track record for finding deposits and resources that mid-tier major companies want to buy.